first recipe is an apple glazed pork tenderloin. This one, this has to be one of my favorites right here. We use it a lot, even with our catering and everything. It's a simple recipe. One of the things that we do different with this, I first cook it with a dry rub, and then right before it's done, we'll put the glaze over and let it glaze over. Because a lot of times people put the glaze on too early, and because of the sugar in it, it causes it to burn. So they get a crispy, that crispiness to it, and also you can taste that charred flavor to it, and that's what we want to try to avoid here. The next recipe is an apple cinnamon cheese ball. A lot of people think cheese balls and apples, that's two things shouldn't go together, but this one, when I first tried this, the first thing that came to my mind was Thanksgiving and autumn. It just has that feel about it, the flavor, the texture, everything about it just reminds you of fall. And this is a great one for during the fall time holidays, for if you're having Halloween parties or for Thanksgiving, even for Christmas time. This would be a great one to use for that. Now, the last one is an apple slaw. And actually, I think I got these in different order from what y'all had. I just thought about that. The apple slaw should be the second one, actually. Because traditionally, the apple slaw actually goes with the pork tenderloin. And it's a lot of the apple slaws that I've tried, you have some that's got a real strong vinegar flavor or some that's got a real strong sweet base to it. I like this one a little better because it's balanced. Because I kept playing around with this recipe because I didn't want to get it where it's too sweet or too sour, because with the apples and the pears it kind of threw it off there. So I think this one you'll appreciate the balance that it has, and this is another one that's good for autumn time. You get that feel about it. Just when you see this, you'll definitely see it as something that you would serve for a fall time dinner, and it's so easy and quick to prepare too. Okay, just a reminder, now next week we're going to be doing homemade candies for a theme, and then the last Monday is going to be hot soups, which is supposed to start getting cooler again, so we'll definitely be wanting some of those. All right, we'll go ahead and start off with our apple glazed pork. All right. Now, you can buy the pork tenderloin whole where you can trim it yourself, or they actually sell this where they pre-trim it. It costs a little bit more, but it saves you so much more time too trying to trim this if you ever try to do it by yourself. Okay. Now, the seasons are a guideline essentially. So it's depending on what your preference is for this. Some people like a little less salt. Some people like a little less pepper or a little bit more pepper. I actually like it with a little bit more black pepper than what this recipe calls for. Keep in mind when you're crusting this, if you let it set for at least a good hour, it's going to help absorb some of the flavors into it. But it's not going to really penetrate the meat per se with a dry rub. So you're not going to get that sharp flavor throughout the meat. It's going to give you a nice crust on the outside, which is going to help seal in the flavor. That's why a lot of times it depends on the size of the loin and also what your preference is on how much of the seasoning you're really going to put on the outside. But what you want to look for is get a good coating on the top of it, because you want to get that nice crispness with the seasons at least to help seal in the flavors as it's cooking. Okay. Now, even though I'm adding a little paprika to this, it's not enough where it's going to make it hot or anything. And normally I'll usually tell you, well, now if you want to make it hot, add this and that, but with this one, you really don't want to make it hot. You want to keep a good balance in the flavors. A little bit of garlic powder and onion powder. then a little bit of thyme. And rosemary, it's not on this list, but rosemary goes really good with this too. Okay. Just get a nice, good little coating there. Kind of pat it down some so that way it don't, because you want to flip it over and make sure you get both sides. Now, if you have a larger loin, one of the things I found about this, when you cook it, once it gets to about 25 to 35 minutes, it's normally when we pull it out and we'll put the glaze over top. But if it's a larger loin than this one, you actually want to take some aluminum foil and go ahead and cover your pan. That'll keep it from drying out and also crisping up on the edges for you. And a lot of people are afraid to cook pork. They always want to overcook it to where it's well done. And with the pork, you don't have to have it quite that well done. A lot of people prefer the medium well. Some people even eat it medium. But you can have a nice juicy even medium well with a pork tenderloin. Keep in mind, once you cook this, when you bring it out of the oven, for the next 10 to 15 minutes, it's going to continue cooking up on you too. And so that's, if you get it out to where you start seeing it's drying on the edges, go ahead and pull it out and let it cook a little bit up on its own. That way you're not burning it and serving it to where it's really dried, unless you prefer to have, because some people prefer to have their meat a little bit drier like that. Okay, get the last of the season here. And then a little bit of salt. Okay. Of course, you're going to bake that off for at least about 30-35 minutes at 350 degrees. And then you're going to take the sauce, which all that is just regular apple jelly, and then a little bit of brown sugar. Now I've already got it up here cooking down a little bit. And all you want to do is when you bring this out of the oven is just spoon a little bit over top, just enough where it drops over the side, and then let that cook an additional 5 minutes. And once that's finished cooking, you bring it out, go ahead and cut it into medallions once it cools down a little bit, and then drizzle a little bit more of this on it. And of course, I've got some pre-cooked. Now, the great thing about this, about using the loins instead of just a regular boneless pork chop or something like that, when you cook this and it's drawing out some of the juices, it stays in the pan with it. So it's constantly rehydrating the meat too when it does that way. And it makes a world of difference. Just take that and just drizzle a little bit over there. It honestly doesn't take much of this because where it's cooked in that sauce, unless of course you prefer to have it a little bit sweeter, but I think you'll find that once it's in this sauce, it's got a nice balance between the seasonings and the sweetness of the glaze on it.